So how tough was that when you're like, oh my God, I got here and now what?
Right.
I'm moving on.
I think it is, though. It's that aha moment like we talked about earlier. You know, you walk into the same building, and I was not there nearly as long as, most of the legacy people there, but I was there long enough that when I looked around, I was like, can I keep doing this? Is this okay, the way that I'm feeling? But I think a lot of people too, your mental health is important.
Yeah.
And if we continue to kind of brush that aside and say, no, it's not, then people are going to stay in the position that I was in. I wasn't happy. On TV, I looked so happy, but on the inside, it's like, I'm drained, I'm tired, I don't know what's next. And then when you finally get to that moment, it's okay. But I would never suggest to somebody and say, yes, quit, go and do it. Look at those other opportunities that are out there. Talk to the people that you've networked with over the last few years and know that if they present to you, know that it's okay. Like, you should trust them enough through that connection that what they give you is what you're going to get. And I knew that going into this hospital situation, that's what I was going to get. I was going to get a team of people who cared about me, my ideas, what I was going to bring to them. They were so excited that they were getting, Carmella Mataloni from the news, not realizing that I was also Carmella Mataloni who had really good ideas that we could implement in the hospital, new organizations that we could partner with. And so for me, it just came out to be better in terms of my skills that I got from working in news for so long and then taking it to this new opportunity. So don't be afraid. It's okay. If it's scary, that might mean it's right, unless it's something pretty terrible. But, I felt very scared. I wasn't sure, but it was in my gut, it was like, this is what you have to go and do.
Welcome back. Let's rock this one today. Look, she is known for big energy, big hair, big personality, and just a big heart. I love her. She is one person I know a lot of you got to know over the past, several years through your television. Carmella Mataloni in the house.
Hi, Ryan. I'm so happy to be here on your couch.
I'm so pumped. By the way, I still get nervous saying your name, even though we worked together back in the day for years.
It's a tongue twister.
Name. Yeah.
Right.
I'm like, Mataloni. I just say it quick.
Quick.
Hit it and get off it like it's hot.
Yep.
All right, so I'm just not going to bury the lead, as we used to say in television. Right. People are like, what's that girl up to? What's she doing?
So,
or what are the rumors that you're doing, and then tell me what you're really doing.
Okay, I was going to say, so since it's been 6 months since I've left the news station, and in that time frame, I've been running for political office, pregnant, married again, ran off to a different state. But what really happened is I accepted a really, really great job opportunity with Lehigh Valley Hospital, Dixon City. And so I run their communications and community relations department.
Yeah, we're going to unpack that because I want to know what your day-to-day looks like, how you're growing, you're thriving, all that stuff. But first, I think for people who might not know the lingo, the news station, Carmella and I worked together back in the day in television at WNEP TV for years. And that was not your first TV station. So you started your career world in TV, but in New York.
In New York, in way, way, way upstate New York, Watertown, New York. And I think if you looked at the map, or at least what I would see when I was driving, I was 12 miles from the Canadian border.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
You were really up there.
I was really up there.
And how long did you work up there, and what was your job before you made it back home, because you were a Dunmore native?
Yes.
Through and through.
Through and through. I always say you're going to have to drag me out of Dunmore.
All right.
But anyway, so it actually worked out that I interned at WNEP in 2012, and I wanted to stay, but our news director then, Carl Abraham, said to move on. So I did, and I went up to Watertown, New York, and I stayed there from November of 2012 until September of 2013, where I then accepted a morning show position for the same station, but just in Binghamton, New York, so another bureau.
Okay.
And so I kickstarted their morning show in Binghamton, and I did that for the next almost 2 years.
Did you like morning TV? Because I always loved your personality. You're always happy, positive. Did you like morning television?
I loved it, but it wasn't live like the way it was live for you for so many years. It was all pre-taped. It was a cable station. So it was all pre-taped. So that's kind of where you made your mistakes. And if you flubbed, you just restarted and did it again. But they would record it, and then it would air every, 25 minutes, half hour. But it would be the same thing consistently.
Got it. And I should reiterate, when you mentioned you were running for office, pregnant, etc., those were all rumors.
All rumors.
That people started when you vanished from their television, right? And you're living a whole new career and loving life, and we're going to talk about that, and your husband, and if kids are on the radar,
Right.
the whole 9 yards. But let's just talk about, so you were in New York, and then when did you end up back in your hometown? I mean, Dunmore, PA is home.
Yes.
And I know that was one of your goals to get back in whatever career you had, work in your hometown because you love this area.
Mm-hmm.
When did that happen?
So WNEP was always the end goal for me, unless Good Morning America or somebody else called. But
Love it.
I knew I was going to make my way back down to WNEP. So when my contract was just about up, I went on to LinkedIn, and that's when I saw that Carl Abraham had followed me, and I hoped that meant his promise was that he was going to bring me back in 2 years. It had been about 2.5.
And we should say Carl, for people who don't know him, Carl was both of our bosses back in the day. One of the greatest news directors we worked for. Phenomenal guy.
Yes,
Love him.
100%, 1,000%. But anyways, so I noticed that he followed me on LinkedIn, and I had sent him a message, and I just said, hey, it's been 2.5 years. I was hoping to maybe come back, and there were a few reporter opportunities available, so I applied, and I went in, and I did an interview.
Because he knew you as an intern, right?
He knew me as an intern,
Yes.
Yep. And because I was one of the super interns, they had filled all the reporter positions. So they brought me back freelance. And it seemed like a better opportunity than staying in Binghamton because, number one, I wouldn't have to pay rent. I was moving right back in with mom and dad. And any other bills that I might have had were going to vanish. So even though I was probably taking a bit of a pay cut, it was all going to end up working out because I wouldn't have all those other expenses. So I ended up saying no to YNN and signing a new contract and coming back and taking a freelance gig at WNEP.
All right. And we want to unpack that because I want this to be about sort of like your journey and where you are now. Because I know even friends of mine who knew we worked together, like, hey, what is she doing? What is she up to? And I want to talk about like your new gig and everything you're doing. But so you started obviously freelancing, and then you started carving your way out as, a full-time reporter, which evolved to an anchor gig in television at WNEP TV specifically. How did that all happen? And walk me through that process.
So it was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears.
Yeah.
I started out working, I think I worked 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. on Saturday and Sundays. I helped line produce. I also did the assignment desk. So I did everything but sports and weather.
Yeah.
I think I got my hands into everything.
And I think that's a misconception, not only from a local station standpoint, stations everywhere. I mean, the people got to be cross-trained.
Oh,
and if there was anybody who was cross-trained, it was you. I remember I'd walk in, I'm like, what are you doing today? Re-roofing the building. Other duties is assigned. Okay,
Yep,
it wasn't that
exactly.
extreme, but
No.
you literally did everything.
I know, I did. But that kind of made me stand out from everybody else, though, because I was always the go-to. So if somebody called off sick abruptly, well, Carmella could do the assignment desk. Or maybe there wasn't a line producer that day. Well, Carmella could go in there and do it. So it was both a blessing and a curse. But at the same time, it also challenged me in all those years that I'd been there until I got a reporter position full-time, and then until I started filling in anchoring, and until I decided to move on.
Yeah, so let's talk about you rising through the ranks. I know you were the Pocono beat reporter, the guru for years, and you're still friendly and close to your
Dan Taransky, always friendly and close.
Photojournalist Dan Taransky, great guy.
Yeah.
But I mean, just from that step to the anchor gig to where you are now, like, how did all of that change and evolve? Because your main goal was to sort of be the face of this region as a local person.
Right.
And a lot of people saw you staying in television in general for your life. And then all of a sudden one day, boom, things changed and you wanted to take a different path, and an opportunity happened and one thing led to the next. And everyone's like, where's Carmella?
I know. So I did. I was the Pocono news reporter for 6 years. But then maybe in my 5th year, I decided, well, I might fill in anchor a little bit. Looks like they could use the help. So I did. And then I got the itch. And then it was kind of all different from that. There wasn't positions open, but you can fill in, and I was okay with that. But then eventually I was like, I'm tired driving back and forth to the Poconos. It's 45 minutes each way. If you're live at 6, you're not getting home till 7. And then when the traffic, forget about it. So I needed a different change. And so when an anchor position popped up, it wasn't ideally what I wanted, but it was enough that my foot was in the door, and it was going to be 2 really great shows, and I was going to be with other anchors. And then all of a sudden, things change, and I get that. But I wasn't doing exactly what I thought I had signed up for. And it started to get really taxing. If you let me, I will lay out what my schedule was. Yeah. So you go in at 2:30.
In the afternoon.
Because
I went in sometimes at 2:30 in the morning.
I think I've gone in for you at 2:30 in the morning.
We had to clarify
occasions.
that. Yeah.
So 2:30 in the afternoon, I would go in, and we'd have to sit through the afternoon meeting and, discuss the stories of the evening. Then by the time that was done, I'd have to go put my clown face on because I had to go and read the news.
I have mine on every day.
So mine doesn't come on as frequently these days, but I'm okay with it.
For me, it's like putting lipstick on a pig. It doesn't do much, but I try.
Yeah. Towards the end, I was like the Joker. I was like, smile. But anyways, so you'd go in at 2:30 and then you'd sit through the afternoon meeting and you'd figure out what stories you're going to do. And then I would have to read what I'd be reading for the 4 o'clock news, get that prepped. Then I'd have to go and read the 4 o'clock news. So in my mind, when I jumped off, okay, I know I'm going to go to Scranton. I know I'm going to interview these people and here's where I'm going. And that's what it was like in the beginning. But then all of a sudden, you know, I wasn't necessarily supposed to be further than Lackawanna and Luzerne counties, and things happen, you get it, but then you're out in Lycoming County and Northumberland County, and those are 2-3 hours away sometimes. Yeah. So for someone to jump off the desk at 5, then have to jump right into a news car, drive 2.5 hours, hope you get the people when you get there to get things on for 10 and 11, that was tough. And to be the only person in that position, there was really no one that you can turn to and say, hey, what am I doing wrong? Or how can I make this better? Or how can I? So eventually it just started to get a little bit much. And that was okay.
Especially, too, because you were recently married.
I was a newlywed, so I went from seeing my husband for dinner every night to maybe just 2 passing ships. So it was difficult. And the big thing is I love my family. And I didn't get to see them nearly as often. Big Italian family. My mom always says, if my dad's not on my right, he's on my left, and then vice versa, you know? But, and not that I saw them every day when I was working 9 to 5, but I saw them a lot. And I felt like I didn't have to say no to so many things that I saw myself starting to say no to. And it was as simple as, can you come over for dinner on Thursday because Dad got out early and I made, you know, whatever. And I had to say no because I just didn't have the time. And I get that. But it's little things like that that were more important to me. And especially after the pandemic, I think that
I was just going to ask you, was anything that happened in the pandemic your wake-up call or your aha moment?
I think so, but I don't necessarily think it was the we're all stuck inside, we have to. I think it was the life is so short, what am I doing? You know, I think that that's what we all looked at and saw. You know, my happiness, yes, was going in and reading the news and talking to people, but my happiness is also everything beyond that. It's my family, it's my husband, it's my dog, it's my friends. It's all my friends who are having kids. I wanted to see them grow. So my pros, cons of trying something new was certainly outweighing the cons of staying. So if that makes sense, I might be backtracking that, but that's where I was at. It was just, I thought I was losing time with people that I loved in something that I realized I loved more than it loved me. So in that was my aha moment. I was like, wow, I really, really love this, but it's really not loving me. It's not loving what I'm thinking. It's not loving how I'm feeling. And maybe it was time to try something new.
But for a while, though, you struggled with that decision, right? Because you're like,
yes.
forever, right? You're like, I want to come back and work in my hometown.
Right.
You were doing that. You were doing your career dream of being on TV and being, you know, the news anchor with everybody thinks you're like a country singer on the side with the hair.
With the hair.
You could totally
had the big
pull
hair.
that off.
I know.
But for you, how hard was that decision to make?
It wasn't an easy one. And it wasn't one that I just woke up with and said, but it was just days and weeks of feeling the same way. Maybe I was more tired. And, you know, when you work those late shifts, maybe I didn't get home until 1 or 2 a.m. I'm sleeping till noon because I didn't get home. By the time you put yourself to bed, it's 3 or 4. Yeah. And then, you know, you get up, it's noon, and then maybe I only see my husband for an hour, and then I have to go to work, and then God knows what time I'm going to get home after that. So it was just a culmination of a lot of things was, you know, how much of it is worth it and how much more do I think I could keep going. But there was never a light at the end of the tunnel that said, this is going to change. And maybe it wasn't going to be 6 months or 2 years or whatever from now. I just didn't see a light. And so...
And you brought it up, obviously, that you're like, I need something different because the things that were really important to you, your family, your husband, et cetera, all of a sudden those windows were shrinking.
Correct.
Okay.
And again, it was nothing against any person, any one thing. The station as a whole, I miss it dearly, but it was time to pick me when I was picking everybody else. So that's why I decided that it was time to maybe look for something else that was already that I had already thought about. You know, it wasn't like, oh, I'm going to go and join, you know, a hospital network. I had worked with those people very closely in the pandemic in the Poconos. Of course, it was Lehigh Valley Hospital Pocono, but that's where I learned and met my future colleagues, you know, and it was through that. And that was something that I saw. I was like, wow, look at the way they all work together. Look at the way they figure things out. Look at the way they story tell from the inside of a hospital. And that really intrigued me. So when that opportunity was standing right in front of me, I was like, sink or swim.
Right. And I think the other thing to point out, you saw probably like a lot of people, this shift in content creation, hospitals, other companies started getting their own team in-house to produce incredible content. that could be distributed across all these digital platforms. And you're like,
Exactly.
wait a minute, I can do the same thing here. But then maybe have that freedom. I get it. Let's talk about when was your decision to say like, okay, I'm going to go shoot my shot and try a different career. And how did your family take that? You guys are so tight, so close. And I know we talked about this before when you're like, oh, I think I'm going to go leave and try something else. But I was like, don't throw out your old pair of shoes to get a new pair, right?
Right.
Tell me when you finally came to that decision and how did that look like with those conversations with your husband, your family? Because everybody's like, you're doing what you're supposed to do. But then you're like, but there's something else I want to try.
Right.
Because that's tough sometimes. If people aren't in your predicament, I think when you try to change your life or do something different, I think a lot of people stay confined in maybe a job or a career anywhere, any industry, to make other people comfortable.
Exactly.
Right?
I don't think it was a shock to many. It was definitely a shock to few, but not many, because they had seen it on me. They had spoken to me and they were like, you sound tired. You look tired. Are you okay?
Isn't that the worst, by the way, when someone sees you and like, you look tired?
You
You're
look
like,
tired.
Well, heck,
And
I
I'm
thought
like,
today I look good today.
I have $400 worth of makeup on my face and I look tired. So, it was just those things. But again, it was for the people that really truly knew me. They knew that something was off. They knew that, I'm at everything. I'm the best soccer mom on the planet. I'm at everything. But all of a sudden I was too tired to go to that, or, I don't really feel like up to it. I was just down. And I think because a lot of people saw that, they knew where it was stemming from. They knew I wasn't happy, and they knew that there was a different opportunity out there for me that I already knew was there. But telling them was hard. I mean, telling my parents was hard, of course. My dad, my parents are so supportive. But it was hard because they knew that I ran around since I was a kid saying I was going to be Julie Sidoni. I would run through my neighborhood and just tell anybody that would listen.
Who was on this couch at one point talking about her life journey and doing different things? Yeah.
But I knew that's who I wanted to be. And the thing
I want to be Julie Sidoni.
Right. But I set out and I did it. I did become Julie Sidoni. I anchored the 4 o'clock news. I filled in for her. I did all this stuff. But it just, at one point I looked at myself in the mirror. Like I said, I was putting on my clown face and I was like the Joker. I was like, smile, smile. And I just couldn't. And again, it was because it was just a lot on my plate for something that maybe I don't want to say I wasn't ready for it, because I certainly was ready for it. I just didn't think that what it was going to come to. And again, it was great. And it was the best time of my life was working in news. There's nothing like working in a news station. But I think everybody that truly knew what I was dealing with saw that maybe it was time for a change. And it wasn't like I said, I'm going to quit and I'm going to do something else. I already had an idea of what I was going to do next. I was very close with who is now my supervisor at Lehigh Valley. She was very, helpful in the whole entire process. It wasn't something that she said, yes, you should come and do it. She helped me weigh the pros and cons. Once I met everybody on the Lehigh Valley staff, though, you've spoken to some, I'm sure.
Game changer. You're like,
game changer.
Done. When do I start?
It's like,
right.
It's hard to talk about it, but it was just like, this fits. So I didn't.
But you applied for other jobs as well, right?
I did,
you were looking not only in public relations or like market. Tell me what some of the other gigs you explored when you thought, I'm going to leave news, just because you wanted to dial into a schedule that might be more accommodating for your family and maybe just to change things up. What else did you explore?
So a lot of social media stuff came out there. That was a lot of copy editing. There was different writing things that you could do, the freelance writing, that's all over the place. So there's a bunch of different things that I applied for or looked at, but none of it really stuck the way that Lehigh Valley stuck. Because again, I had those conversations with the girl who's now my manager. I'd had those conversations with her and said, hey, you used to be a reporter. What made you take this leap? And she kind of said the same thing. She was like, I was tired. There wasn't really, I wasn't getting much else out of my reporter job. I wasn't feeling fulfilled, gratified, happy. So I went and tried something else. And it took her a couple steps before she got to Lehigh Valley, but she's been there for 3 years and she loves it. And so it made it a lot easier for me to figure out that I would love it too.
And when people say, Carmella, what is she up to today? Walk me through your day-to-day now.
Sure.
Just again to recap it, because you're doing something that aligns. I mean, you're such a great writer. You have such a great presence about you, but you're doing stuff that aligns with that. But I know you're being challenged in a whole new direction.
Yes.
Which is thriving for anybody when they're starting a new career.
Exactly. So one of the big reasons why I wanted the hospital job is because it had that word in their community, which is big in my book. I want to be out in the communities that I love and the people that I love that live there. So, what I do is I do any communications plan that might come out of the hospital for Dixon City. So, we just recently, we decided that we did a partnership with Geisinger Health Plan, and so now we take Geisinger. So I did the whole entire communications plan for that. Now it was like being back in the news because you get the word and then you got to go.
Yeah.
So I put together that whole entire communications plan, but with a very great team behind me who was supportive, who helped me because I was the new kid and I just got handed this really big job. So it's a lot of the communications plans. It's a lot of inside internal writing, that type of thing. But what I really love about it is, again, that community aspect. So if you have an event or a fundraiser and you need sponsorships and you come to the hospital, I get to figure out, how can the hospital fit in? Yeah. And then once those events happen, I get to go and I'm the one that's waving, handing out a first aid kit, introducing our doctors. So
you're still engaging with the community just in
I'm still out there. I'm still out there with the community. Just I'm now shouting health, health, health.
Yeah.
Instead of news, news, news.
What's the most rewarding part of your new job now?
I honestly think it has to be the team of people that I work with. Like, I never needed a pat on my back to say, you did a good job, but they are constantly picking each other up, saying, you did a good job, or, if you need support on this, you've got it. It's a very easy team to work with. And because it came so natural to me the first day I met all of them, it's just become such a beautiful partnership, teamwork. And I'm not afraid to ask questions. I'm not afraid to pitch my ideas. And that's really where I think I needed to be, was in a place where I could be creative and speak my mind and ask questions and give, examples or something. And that's what I found.
Right. That's the one thing I always loved about you. When you would just come in the meetings and be like, I got this idea and I'm going to share it. Where other people at a lot of organizations, right, will just sit on stuff because, what if people think it's dumb? I mean, the amount of spaghetti I threw against the wall at my last career, right? And you're like, hey, and sometimes it sticks and sometimes it doesn't. How do you think your job, your life, the people you've met in news set you up for this next chapter? I
really think it's that networking that we get to do as journalists, as reporters, as anchors. Our job is to talk to people. And that's truly how you find, unless you can just kickstart something on your own, you need help along the way. And I'm sure you needed help to get this running.
Yes.
But it was because of those contacts, those people that you worked with. So in that regard, that's how I got to where I was because I made a really great relationship with the woman who runs the communications, who has my job at Pocono. And I felt comfortable enough to call her and say, hey, I knew that this was an opportunity a couple months ago. Any chance that opportunity is still there? And if it is, what do you think about me? And it was a no-brainer for her because she knew me. She worked with me. She knew the stories I could tell.
I love the moxie behind that. Yeah. You're just like, yo, what about me?
No, well, shoot your shot, right?
Yeah, I really think the industry we were in, right, for many years, and I still talk to everybody, like you said. Same. I think the thing is I'm so grateful for, as probably you, the amount of people you met through, and whether it was NEP or say another station in the country where you worked, right? Like that sets you up for the next chapter in your life, to be able to network with people, to speak your mind in a professional way, but also say like, I got this idea I want to bring on the radar. I'm so grateful for that. And the amount of smart people we were surrounded by every day, that now like you are probably doing stuff at your new job that people are like, wow. And you're like, oh my God, I could do this with my eyes closed thanks to this type of training.
Right. And the other thing too was that when I left, I wasn't the only one. You went, Julie went, Sarah Bynofsky went, Tom Williams went. It was all of these legacy people that had the courage to go and try something new that I thought, I might not be a legacy person yet, but it's also okay for me to try. They survived. Yeah. You know what I mean?
You're not going to die. That's what I said. Right.
And that was the thing. But I was very careful on what I picked because I wanted to stay in the community. Again, I wasn't going to just leave willy-nilly. That was not what I wanted to do. But I wanted to go and try something else where I knew I was going to be challenged, where I knew that I was going to be out in the community, and where I knew I could put what I learned all those years at 16 to just something different.
Do you felt like you had to answer to a lot of people? Because I know when you posted it on social media and you're like, hey, career update, like I took this great job in communications with Lehigh Valley Health Network. Like people are stunned, I think. And I want to point out and stress, it's not just like that place we work, right? It's any organization. I find that I have friends who work in HR when they get ready to leave, people are like, why would you leave that bank or that company? Why? Why? Like, I think gone are the days where people, it's very few and far between where you stayed at a company for 35 years.
Right. It just,
right? It's unless you really feel like you're thriving, growing, being rewarded, but like doing the same old thing. I think in general, it's not just television, it's the financial world. I see it across businesses, right? Where people are just like, if I'm not growing here, I don't want to, like, you got to go shoot your shot.
Exactly. And I truly think that that's just what happened to me is I while I was in my favorite position in my dream station and everything else, there was still just something else missing. And was that, more time with my family? Was that more money in my pocket? I don't know what it's kind of a blur, everything, when I chose to leave, but it was something that I felt in that moment that I needed to do. And to your point, to finally your question, yes, I did have to answer to a lot of people because I didn't have the send off. I wasn't, I didn't get to say.
Let's talk about that. So your last day, some of us had send-offs there. And I remember getting a call from you and you're like, hey, just so you know, it was my last day. I'm out and I'm starting at this new company in a few weeks. I'm like, wait a minute. Pump the brakes. Yeah. What happened? I got to get the tea for everybody. What went on? So
I was told by Lehigh Valley that that they were going to hire me and that I got the position, and I was thrilled. Mm-hmm. And so I knew that is where I was going to go and what I wanted to do. And, that's not the easiest conversation to have with anybody, let alone, managers who rely on you to, do your job and do it well. But I will say it was very understanding the way that everything happened. I said my piece, they said theirs. And that's how it works though. So
yes.
It was no, there's no big party. There's no big farewell. It's just, I have this new opportunity. I have to take it.
And I saw that at other companies too, where people were a CFO of a bank or whatever. And they're
but again, there was no, it wasn't like I, packed a box and stormed out and did everything else. I did what any normal person would do. I went and got my stuff and I carried on. But I was starting a new job in just, 2 weeks later. So while it was like, okay, this isn't the ending that I necessarily wanted, I get it. I have no hard feelings. I mean, I think I lucked out better, but I just think that it was what it was. That's the nature of the beast, and I'm okay with it. It wasn't like I went home and, cried and said, oh my goodness, what did I just do? I was like, oh my goodness, I have this new opportunity and I truly cannot wait until it starts.
What's your message to other people who see this and hear this and they're in a similar predicament where they feel like this is all I wanted to be in life, and then you get there, right? Like nobody tells you, I feel like no matter what your goal is, and everybody has different peaks of the mountain they want to hit, but when you get there, nobody tells you then what to do after you hit the top, whatever that top looks like for everybody, right?
Right.
Like for you, I mean, that must, was that tough to navigate? Because you get there and then you're like, okay, I did what, like you said, I wanted to be Julie Sidoni in this market, right? Or, there's other people I'm sure, like maybe Robin Roberts from GMA wanted to be Diane Sawyer. She's done it. And then you see these people and they're hungry like you, right?
Right.
What's around the next corner? So how tough was that when you're like, oh my God, I got here and now what?
Right.
I'm moving on.
I think it is, though, it's that aha moment like we talked about earlier. You walk into the same building, and I was not there nearly as long as, most of the legacy people there, but I was there long enough that when I looked around, I was like, can I keep doing this? Is this okay, the way that I'm feeling? But I think a lot of people too, your mental health is important.
Yeah.
And if we continue to kind of brush that aside and say, no, it's not, then people are going to stay in the position that I was in. I wasn't happy. On TV, I looked so happy, but on the inside, it's like, I'm drained. I'm tired. I don't know what's next. And then when you finally get to that moment, it's okay. But I would never suggest to somebody and say, yes, quit, go and do it. Look at those other opportunities that are out there. Talk to the people that you've networked with over the last few years and know that if they present to you, know that it's okay. You should trust them enough through that connection that what they give you is what you're going to get. And I knew that going into this hospital situation, that's what I was going to get. I was going to get a team of people who cared about me, my ideas, what I was going to bring to them. They were so excited that they were getting, Carmella Mataloni from the news, not realizing that I was also Carmella Mataloni who had really good ideas that we could implement in the hospital, new organizations that we could partner with. And so for me, it just came out to be better in terms of my skills that I got from working in news for so long and then taking it to this new opportunity. So don't be afraid. It's okay. If it's scary, that might mean it's right, unless it's something pretty terrible. But, I felt very scared. I wasn't sure, but it was in my gut, it was like, this is what you have to go and do.
How has your personal life improved? Tell me about the husband
Oh
and
my
the dog
goodness.
who you post. I mean, your dog has
Bernie.
its own little following.
I know. So Bernie's great. He's going to be 2 on February 6th. I don't even want to talk about it. But anyways, no, it's been great. I see my family so much more. I mean, it's incredible. But I see my friends. All my girlfriends had kids, and I wanted to watch them grow. Not that I see them every day or that I'm on, but, it's little things that I wanted to, be able to do. At 5:30 when one of the girls has to run to the grocery store and maybe, husband's still at work, can you come over and watch for 10 minutes? Right. Yes, that's my favorite. Those are my favorite phone calls. Can you come and watch them for a few minutes?
I don't mind watching people's kids because I like to give them back.
Right, that's where
I'm like, hey, you want to eat gallons of ice cream and chocolate milk? That's fine. Just be alive when your mom comes home.
But my husband and I, we have dinner every night, and we did that all the way for the entire time we've been together. We've had dinner every night, and that was a big thing for us. And for a while, we didn't have it.
Isn't that insane? Like, I agree with that 110%. I was not doing it. I was seeing my partner for like 15 minutes at a clip, right? And that's even if I was like, say, a nurse working 3 to 11, right, in the hospital, like that stuff, when it's not there, it starts to become really noticeable, and you miss it, and you start thinking like, wow, is this my life? Like, am I going to do this for X amount of years? And if people are happy and they like doing that, fine, I support it, right? But I think for me now to be able to eat with my partner dinner at night,
right,
at 5:45 and 6, and I'm not like yawning in his face because I got to get up at 2 a.m.,
right,
game changer.
Right. But again, if I saw a light at the end of that very dark tunnel, if I even just saw like a little, like a dot, I would have said, okay, I could stick this out. But it was just so dark that I was like, I have this other really great opportunity. And if I don't go for it now, will it be there when I decide maybe it's time to make the leap? And if it's not, what do I do next?
Yeah. Talk about, what are you doing next? What does the future look like? What are some things that are on your radar with your current gig? The family, I mean, kids down the road.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the nice part about where I'm at with Lehigh Valley right now is that I started at the bottom at the brand new hospital, but there is room for growth. Now, does that mean growth in the communications department? Who knows? Marketing is a whole different animal. I could look at that. But they allow you to take those steps to look at different. So I'm truly not worried about moving up in the hospital because it's a brand new network that's going to grow. They seem to be well received in the community right now, but it's a health organization that we're always going to need. Health is important. Health in my family is very important, and I'm happy that I can have access to those doctors, not only for myself, but for my family down the road too. It's very tough to find good doctors and talk to people, and I know that the family of doctors that are there at Lehigh Valley I can go to.
What do you think the misconception is with healthcare in this area, now that you're entrenched in it? There's a lot of competition.
Tons of competition.
And I think that keeps everybody try to bring their best foot forward, so to speak. But what do you think is the misconception now that you're in it? That we have amazing doctors here in this area? Like, what would you say?
I think the problem is that a lot of people look at our area and they say, okay, now I'm going to go to Philly. That's Philly and New York. That's where all of it is. But I think it doesn't matter which healthcare network you work at. You have to understand that a lot of these doctors came from those backgrounds, and maybe this is where they decided to start their family. Lehigh Valley, for instance, I mean, we have tons of doctors, some that have just started who have been in your backyard, for years. They're just a doctor and they decided to join the network, or they've been a local doctor, not just a doctor, but they've been a local doctor and they've decided to join our health network. But meanwhile, we're also getting all different other walks of life when it comes to, medical. And it's just nice to see that. But I think it is that I truly don't know what the misconception would be, other than, that we have, that maybe it's that we don't have the best doctors in this area, that you have to go somewhere like Allentown or Philly or something. But now with Lehigh Valley, we've kind of brought that here. The orthopedic side, that's a big deal. We have our ER, the ICU is going to be opening up in the spring, so that's going to be a really big game changer for us too. But also, the need in the community. Look at this area now. It used to be older people. Well, not since the pandemic. So many families have come back, and they're here back now to raise their families. Yeah. So you're going to need those doctors. You're going to need those. And I think it was a really good time for Lehigh Valley to come into this area, because they didn't come in here and, lay down the gauntlet and said, we are here. We don't care who else is here. They came in and said, we're your community partner, and let us show you that. And I think they've done a really good job so far.
How do you feel now? I mean, now with this next chapter, being a part of this community, I feel like the people here are they just swallow you whole. They just welcome you, right? Like when you met people and they ask like, oh, where'd you go? And you just vanish, right? From my television. Like, what are those conversations like now with people? I feel like, I mean, in my situation, people were so supportive.
Yeah.
Because I felt like I was like the adopted brother they never had.
Yeah.
And for you, you were like their country singer they never had.
I know.
Living in their house.
I think it's a lot easier when you lay it down. Of course, you air out some things you keep to yourself. But, the airing out that I've done is just that I needed something else. I needed something else that I could look forward to going to. I needed to do something different. Now, does that mean that I'm going to, do it forever? No, it's certainly, I could change my mind, 20 years from now. But at this point in my life, I was like, I needed something different. I wanted something different. And you'll have the people who said, oh, I can't believe you did what you did. But then you have the people who are like, wow, that was really brave. That was good that you decided that. Most people would just do it to stay on TV or, whatever. But I didn't, being on TV was a perk. It wasn't what I went in to do it. I'm loud, but in print, they cut me off, and everything else on TV, it's hard to, when she's doing her song and dance live on air, it's hard to cut her off. And, I don't stop talking ever. But, it was just, that's just where I was at.
What a journey, though. And I mean, I feel like you're just getting started.
I really feel like I am,
Isn't that
too.
tough? Because I think when you're in your 20s, you think like, man, by 25, I'm going to be doing X, Y, and Z. Like for me, I thought like, oh, maybe you'll be the youngest guy at the Today Show. And things change. I thought I'd be in this market for, 2 years, and then you move up and you do this and that, and then things shift. But it's like now, I think you hit the nail on the head. It's the family, it's the friends, it's the people in your life who really matter. And this career thing is like secondary. Back in the day when you start out, it's literally everything.
Right. And I think that
and it almost
scared a lot of
becomes
people.
part of your identity. And that's where I think, whether it's in television or other positions, right? Because I've seen people who were, I knew people who were cardiologists at different hospitals who are just like, I think I want to work in I want to deliver babies instead of doing heart surgery. And I think at any age you have to go out and live your dream.
Exactly. And I did see too, and it upsets me because I have a journalism degree, that I will never not be a journalist. I have a degree in it. And I don't want people to be fearful to go and get journalism degrees, because it's a very important degree to have, number one. But number two, it doesn't mean that you have to write for the local newspaper or be on the local television or work your way up to network. You can use those skills to communicate important health related information for a hospital, or like you're getting out everybody's information of what maybe they don't,
their brand, their business,
their business, right? So there's different ways that you could use that degree, and it would break my heart to see people not go for it because they thought, oh, I'm only going to get this, maybe mediocre paying job. And
I always tell people, don't go into it. Don't go into any
it for the
job.
money.
I would say any job, not for the money. I mean, my first job in television, I was making $6.75 an hour.
My Watertown job, I think I signed it for $24,000.
Yeah. And now you look back, you're like, how did I live off of that? I knew how to bounce a check better than anybody back when I was 18.
I might have just picked up the phone and said, Dad.
I mean, I get it. But listen, I'm so glad that you stopped by. I wanted to share because so many people adored you when you had, your past life in television. And people are like, what the heck is she doing?
Yeah.
And
thriving.
I wanted to catch up with you. She's thriving. That's what
I know. I'm thriving.
That's your headline right now.
I finally feel like I'm thriving again. Yeah. Which is good.
Any final thoughts?
No, I'm just so happy to be invited here. On Snapchat, I'd be like, I got to get in that office.
I love you.
I'm so happy I'm here.
I'm so glad you're here. And I'm glad the hair is still.
I know.
I don't know who uses more hairspray, you or me.
Do you know I just bought my first can of hairspray since I left, maybe about last week?
Okay.
Because I'm not dousing
you're not
it every
blowing
day.
it up.
Because I work from home primarily, so that's.
Love that.
Yeah.
Okay. You're still killing it.
Thank you so much.
So give me some of that.
I love it.
You. I'm so glad you were here.
Yeah, I'm so glad too.
Your headline, Carmella Mataloni, thriving.
Thriving.
And that's that.